All right, well, let's talk about these preventive detention laws now, and let's have a listen to Mark Dreyfus exploding in the press conference this morning.
Do you owe an apology to those in the community that have been subjected to misdeeds by some of these individuals?
Olivia, the reason that these people have been released from immigration detention is because the High Court has made a decision that means it is illegal for us to continue to detain them.
I want to suggest to you that that question is an absurd question. You are asking a Cabinet Minister, 3 ministers of the Crown, to apologise for upholding the law of Australia, for acting in accordance with the law of Australia, for following the instructions of the High Court of Australia. I will not be apologising for upholding the law. I will not be apologising for pursuing the rule of law, and I will not be apologising for acting. Do not interrupt. I will not be apologising for acting. I will not be apologising for acting in accordance with a High Court decision. Your question is an absurd one.
Okay, I think we'll move on here. Yep.
I mean, Claire O'Neill has to pull him up there. I think it just got worse and worse. You tweeted about it. Let's have a look. You basically said that it is disgraceful behaviour. Talking down to and shouting at young women in the press gallery is totally inappropriate. You should apologise. We can't just move on here. Let me ask you first, what do you make of his outburst?
I sat watching that, Andrew, and my jaw dropped literally, as did, I think, many jaws across this workplace. You do not speak to people like that in any workplace. The most powerful law officer in the land, as he likes to remind us, shouting at a female journalist, pointing the finger at her and talking down to her in that manner, I'm gobsmacked. And look, Liv Caisley is an incredibly smart, intelligent, valuable journalist with a great history in print, TV, and a credit to your network. And I'm sure she'll say this rolls off her back, but we need to call this out.
I was going to say,
needs to apologise.
I've had plenty of politicians having a crack at me.
Well, I really think that the way he did this, he didn't speak to any man in that press conference like that. The way he shouted, the way he pointed his finger. I challenge anyone to watch that footage and not feel really aggrieved on behalf of a young woman who is doing her job.
So you think his reaction is because of her age and gender? That's what you seem to be.
I make the point that he didn't react like that to any of the tough questions he got from men. And sometimes when you're a young woman, this type of behaviour unfortunately still happens.
Is this a hangover, you speaking out on this, from how you feel your friend Scott Morrison was treated around the issue of women?
It's not, Andrew. It's not related to that. It's simply that I saw behaviour that's not acceptable. Remember, what Liv Caisley was asking for was an apology to the woman who actually was allegedly assaulted by the person that this government let out of detention and now seems unable to say sorry to that woman, to the people in Victoria who are now being threatened by a child sex predator who's another person who's escaped. I mean, this is completely chaotic. Not to even have an apology about the issue itself is pretty bad. And
like
meanwhile, the Prime Minister's in hiding, not coming out, not fronting the media.
Well, he gave a press conference today, didn't he?
He gave a press conference about National Cabinet. I would have liked him to be asked about his Attorney General. I think that Senator Wong was asked, and I don't know that she backed in.
No, she didn't back him in. I mean, it wasn't own goal,
look,
wasn't it?
It's behaviour that is disgraceful. It's not acceptable. It shouldn't happen. He, particularly, as the first law officer of this land, should not be shouting, raising his voice and speaking in such a derogatory tone to a young woman who's a female journalist doing her job. And what I'm asking for, Andrew, is that he says sorry. I don't know. Has he picked up the phone? Has he talked to Liv? Has he said,
I don't think he has.
I'm sorry?
I mean, the other thing that struck me, to be honest, is, well, a couple of things. It was a little bit vain and conceited, and it looks like he kind of forgot the woman who was indecently assaulted on the weekend. Like, it was all about him.
I think that's a good observation. That woman needs to be apologised to. We asked the Immigration Minister in Parliament a couple of weeks ago now, could he provide us with a list of all of these people that have escaped and those that have been let out by this government. And he said, yes, I will, and no, he hasn't. So this government is running a million miles from the key issues here, which are community safety. And the fact that they just don't seem to get it at all. I mean, 3 of them in that press conference, which is why, Andrew, we are calling for resignations over this. It's a big call, but it's a necessary one.
How hard are you going to go in question time, including on the potential for an apology tomorrow?
Well, we want the government to take responsibility for community safety. This is a minister, the Home Affairs Minister, who said we can't legislate preventative detention, and then said, oh, yes, we can, and by the way, the Parliament won't rise until we do. So that's how confused a minister who should have had all of this legislative response lined up since before the High Court actually released its decision. That's what we're getting. We fixed up the first piece of legislation by adding amendments to actually make it fit for purpose. Another piece of legislation is coming to the House tonight. We, of course, will sit as late as we need to, and we'll be arguing the case on behalf of the Australian community, who has every right to feel safe. I sat there in question time and I watched ministers laugh. Oh, come on, don't be ridiculous, seemed to be their response, as if the community wouldn't be safe. Accused us of overreacting. Since then, we've had 3 people who have been charged allegedly for offences following their release, and there is 148 in total. And meanwhile, the community does need to be reassured that this government has got this in hand, and they're not getting that impression at all. And certainly, if you listen to the Attorney General and his 2 ministers, it just looks so ham-fisted, so hopeless, so hapless.
What amendments do you want to see? What amendments are you moving? And if they don't pass, will you pass the ledge anyway?
We moved amendments in the Senate, and I'm sure we'll repeat those in the House. We're about to have a joint party room meeting where we'll get briefings from the Attorney General, the Shadow Attorney General, and we'll discuss our approach
I don't think
in the
Mark
House.
Dreyfus will be there.
But overriding all of that will be our determination that this legislation is fit for purpose. Because remember, we're led by someone who understands how border control needs to work, who understands the imperative around keeping the community safe, who actually appreciates that this is really, really serious. I was in South Australia.
Sorry, go on.
Andrew, I was in South Australia yesterday where one of these individuals was previously had attacked elderly women in regional South Australia, now has allegedly attacked another woman. It is a red-hot issue there. It's really, really... you know, I'm standing in coffee queues, I'm at the taxi rank, and people are talking about this. They're really agitated, and they don't think that this is being handled properly by a government that is just not up to it.
But even more to the point, I know what you're saying. You have to have the party room discussion, but you have to pass it. Even if you don't think, even if they don't carry your amendments, you have to pass this tonight if you can, don't you?
The legislation's coming back from the Senate. We'll have a look at it. Parliament's sitting for 2 more days, and we've always said we want to do this properly. We're not rushing to leave the building.
Yeah, you're happy to have this on tomorrow and the next day, but don't we need this law enforced as soon as possible?
Yes, we do, but all legislation needs to do the job that it was set up to do, and we'll make sure of that.
All right, Claire O'Neill also accused Peter Dutton of garbage and lies, her words, for saying the High Court decision meant they only had to release NZYQ. What do you make of that?
Can you believe that every time the Home Affairs Minister and the Immigration Minister stand up, they point the finger at us? I mean, can you really believe that? Let's just look at what happened here.
I'm not sure how effective it is, I have to say.
I mean, let's just look at they lost the High Court case, Andrew. They actually lost the case. Then they released over 140 people.
Your side appointed the judges.
Then but they lost the case. Then they released over 140 people. Then they lost one of them. Now 3 of them are being charged allegedly with offences that they've committed, something we warned them would happen and they ridiculed us about. So I think it's about time they took responsibility, and I think it's about time they also apologised to the people who are feeling fearful with some of these individuals out and having committed offences against them before.
Just finally, what's your reaction to the National Cabinet announcement today?
We'll go through the detail. You know, as a previous health minister, bulk billing is collapsing under this government. The health minister can talk about tripling the bulk billing incentive. That doesn't mean you triple the number of bulk billed consultations. And I see bulk billing in freefall, and that's a good measure of affordability of going to the doctor. I think people on the NDIS have got something to worry about. I don't think Bill Shorten's got a clue how to fix it. So
Don't you have to take some of the eligibility out, though? Aren't they at least having a crack? Otherwise everyone loses it. It becomes too unaffordable.
I've got great colleagues that'll work through this in their individual shadow portfolio areas, and we'll have a good look at it. But it's a national cabinet. It was pictures. It was smiling set pieces, Andrew. As always, the devil is in the detail.
Sussan Ley, Deputy Liberal Leader, thanks for your time.